Purnamidam Purnam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Or that Brahman is infinite. This phenomenal world is also infinite. But this is only a projection of that. Nevertheless, if this is taken away, that remains infinite as before. All peace to the individuals, peace to the earth, peace to the animals. Good evening and welcome to the service. And most of you are new, so we'll kind of give some background. We're studying the Isha Upanishad, which is considered the earliest, probably, of the Upanishads. It's also one of the shortest. And what we just chanted was a peace chant, that all of the Upanishads are connected with one of the Vedas, and each Upanishad has a peace chant that goes with us. And so, what we just recited, Brahman is infinite, the universe is infinite, and out of that infinite, the universe is taking place, and if you remove the infinite, then only the infinite remains. Now, the idea behind all the Vedic knowledge, or the Upanishadic knowledge, is the idea that there's only one thing in existence. Now, in Hinduism, there are hundreds of different gods and goddesses, but the Hindus actually only believe in one God. That one reality, which they call Brahman, and that reality can take many different forms. And so, in fact, not only does it take forms as different gods or goddesses, different cosmic powers, but ultimately, from the standpoint of Vedanta, that one reality has become everything in existence. So even the insects, the animals, human beings, everything is a manifestation and expression of that one reality. So it's like Brahman's like the ocean, and on that ocean you can have an infinite number of waves. Take home some great big waves, some little tiny waves, but underneath, they're all the one ocean. And so, in this whole universe, what you have is the one reality, the one God, the one play. It's sometimes called the Lila, or the play, because he is experiencing this universe through all the different beings in it. Now, in order to understand this, we need to develop a different sense of creation than what we ordinarily have. One type of creation is where a painter, he paints a picture. And now, that picture, he can sell it, he can give it away, he can do whatever he wants with it. He can go to California, and the picture could be in New York, because he's created the picture, he's put it out there, and it's something completely separate from him. But there's another type of creation, and that's the mental creation. And this is the type of creation you have when a novelist, a writer, he creates a novel. He creates a book full of characters and actions and all kinds of things going on, but yet that world that he created is nothing different than himself. It's contained within his own mind, within his own consciousness. Now, if the characters in the book, if they were to begin to examine everything else, all the other characters, all the objects and things in the world, and they began to ask, who made me? They wouldn't find. Everyone, every person they checked, every thing they examined, they would never find who made me. But yet all the time, their creator, the source of their being, is right there, because they're contained within the mind and the consciousness of God. And so this is the idea behind Vedanta creation, is that this universe is an expression of creation, what they call Hiranyagarbha, or the cosmic mind. We're all contained within that mind, kind of like ideas within that mind. Now, if you take any individual, like yourself, and you begin to probe deeply into that individual, you'll eventually discover that what's there is actually the presence of the consciousness of God Himself. Now, when they talk about God, Brahman, the ultimate reality, they say it's indescribable, but the closest they can come to describe it is called Satchit Ananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss. That's His kind of very essence. That's the essence of the ocean. And so that consciousness is the only consciousness that exists. But yet we as human beings, we're conscious. But our idea of consciousness is, okay, I'm awake. I'm aware of what's going on, I'm alert, and so I'm conscious. But what we experience is human consciousness. And that human consciousness is the consciousness connected with a particular body and a particular mind. And if most of us, if you ask, well, who are you? We would say, well, I'm so-and-so. And I was born, Kilcock, Iowa in 1945, and I went to this school, and I had this job, and I know this thing, and I have these various feelings and opinions about things. In other words, I'm this body, I'm this personality, I'm this particular individual. But if you begin to search deeply within yourself, you eventually discover that there's a level of consciousness within you which is not the body, and it's not the mind, it's not the personality, it's consciousness, it's awareness. And this is our true nature. It's sometimes referred to as the Sakshi of the witness. In our true nature, we are the witness, the awareness, which is aware of things happening. And we get our experience in this life, we get our experience through this particular body. But the body and the mind, they're actually instruments. They're vehicles. It's like your car. You get in your car, and then you can drive places, you can see different scenery, and go different places, but you're not the car. In the same way, through the body and the mind, we can be in this world, we can act in this world, we can do things, we can experience things, all kinds of things, but yet, that's not what we are. We're the consciousness, the immortal, spiritual being that is using this body. And so, but the problem we have is that normally we get so absorbed in the body and in what we experience in the world and so forth that we forget, well, who are we really? We think we're in this world. We think we're going through our life, we're thinking we're going through all the ups and downs of human existence, all the struggles and conflicts and things that tend to come in human life, and we think, well, this is me, and this is all that I am, and this is all that's going on. But when a person, and this is because normally all of our attention is focused outside. We're looking at, we're seeing a world outside of ourselves, we're seeing other people outside of ourselves, and then we're struggling and reacting with all that. And in the process, we never stop to ask usually, well, who am I? Who's actually experiencing these things? Now there comes a point in a person's life where he or she may begin to reverse that process. Instead of totally being focused on what's going on outside, you begin to wonder, well, what's inside? And this is the process of meditation and spiritual practices and so forth, is to kind of begin that inner search of trying to discover what's actually there. And so this is then, when a person does this, eventually he discovers that what he is not just a human being, not just a limited kind of physical organism, not something separate from everything else, but actually the one infinite divine ocean of consciousness is there within him. And the part of him that's saying, I'm aware, is actually not the body. Not dependent on the body, it's not dependent on the mind, it's a consciousness. And so this is kind of when you go back to the Upanishads, which is kind of the foundation of the spiritual knowledge of Hinduism, this is the basic idea. Is that they speak of two selves. The word for divine within is called Atman. That word, it means self. It could be self with a small s, meaning I'm this particular person here. But they usually refer to mean the self with a capital S, meaning I'm that self, that infinite consciousness, that infinite divine consciousness. This is what I am. And then you'll find that your whole vast kind of realm of knowledge, wisdom, power, love, all these things unfold from within you. And so this is what, in this little peace chant that we had, this is what it's saying, is that Brahman is there. The one, the infinite reality, the infinite divine reality is there. And this universe that we're in, it's a projection of that reality. And yet, that reality pervades everything and is ultimately discovered to be the only thing that exists. So in ancient times in India, there were people known as the rishis, or the sages, and they went into the forest and they meditated and so forth, and they made three great discoveries. The first thing they discovered is that man, in his real nature, he's an immortal spiritual being. He's not mortal like the body. The body will be here for a few years, then it goes, but you continue. You will continue to exist, and eventually, if you want, you take on another body. So they discovered that the real self within us is immortal, eternal principle. And secondly, and they call this the Atman. And secondly, they discovered that behind the whole universe, there's this one universal, infinite consciousness or being, and they call that Brahman. But the third thing they discovered is that there's a unity of things. Now, as human beings, we all exist as separate units, as like separate units of consciousness, and we're separate from everybody else. And some people we like and we get along with, and we call them friends. Some people we don't like, and we get into conflict, and we call them enemies. And like that, we're always interreacting, bumping into each other, fighting with each other, sometimes loving each other, and like that, always interreacting, but seeing always there's me, and then there's everything else, and I'm separate from that. I'm separate from everything else. But when a person becomes spiritual, when he begins to move towards the spiritual consciousness, he's actually moving into the oneness of things. He eventually begins to discover that there's one consciousness there. And that then he begins to find himself in harmony with everything else. Normally we live as human beings, we live in various states or levels of selfishness. Most of our time is focused on what's happening to us. You know, we have this huge, vast universe, billions of galaxies there, right? But 99% of our thought is what's happening to me. You know, am I getting what I want? Am I succeeding? Do people like me? Don't they like me? And like that, all of our attention is focused on ourselves. And this makes us selfish. This makes us very small, very limited, and very separate, isolated from everything else. But as a person begins to become spiritual, then he begins to gradually grow into his awareness that, oh, I'm part of this wonderful spiritual reality. And as he begins to discover that, he also begins to realize that that same reality is within everybody else. And this is the growth. This is what we're trying to evolve into, or going to, is going from being a very small kind of expression of consciousness to gradually expand until we become reunited with our source. In this particular world that we're in, is made up of what they call the pairs of opposites. You have good, but you also have bad. You have happiness, you have unhappiness, and things are always kind of fluctuating from one end to the other. You have health and you have sickness and all these things. And that's the nature of the world, and because it's of that nature, this is why souls come here. They come here to experience these things. And through these things, through struggling with it, problems, adversities, things like that, gradually the soul develops and evolves and grows until it realizes its own divine nature. And this is the other thing to remember, is that in Vedanta, this spiritual reality can never be lost. Sometimes people have the idea that, oh, if you make a mistake or you commit a sin, then you go to hell, and then you're just kind of done for all eternity. But no matter, in Hinduism, they believe in heavens, various levels of heaven. They also believe in various hells. But all of these things are temporary. All these things are temporary experiences that come, and then they change. But the underlying reality, this is always divine. And this is within each and every person, whether they're a saint or a sinner, no matter how good they are or how bad they are, within each and every person is the presence of the divine. All the glory, all the power, all the love, all the wisdom of God is there. But it's covered over, it's blocked. And that's the whole kind of spiritual life and spiritual teachings are all basically telling us that this is where you find what you're seeking. In this world, everybody is searching. And basically, everybody's searching for happiness. There's some sort of peace of mind, some happiness, and they're thinking, if I had more money, I'll be happy. If I found the right person or the right relationship, I'd be happy. Or if I did this or that. And like that, we're looking all over the world, hoping to find something that will make us happy. And, we covered this before, but so many people, they think if I had $1 million, I'd be happy. And then they get the $1 million and they find I'm pretty much the same as I was before. It didn't really make me that happy. It's a little more comfortable, a little nicer home or something, but really I'm still not satisfied. And we have all our science and technology. If somebody from the Middle Ages was to come here and to see, well, you just flip a switch and you have light, you don't have to light torches or anything, they think, oh, we're living in heaven. It's a wonderful, what an incredible thing. But yet, how much happiness do we get out of our light switch? It's removed some of the botheration of life, but other than that, it basically doesn't change us that much. And so, as long as we're seeking happiness in the outside, we get some happiness, but also we find sometimes we don't get happiness. Sometimes the thing which gives us happiness at one point, it gives us misery at another point. This happens in relationships. Often it's just in the beginning, everything is wonderful, but after some time it can turn very bad and create a lot of misery. I like that we're fluctuating all the time and never, ever finding what we're really searching for. But what we're really searching for won't be found outside. It's something that's inside. It's the state of our own inner consciousness, the presence of the divine, the presence of God within us. This is ultimately what we're seeking. And the basic principle, one basic principle of spiritual life teaching is that happiness is not something you get, it's something you are. And this, where instead of trying to get happiness, instead of trying to find the thing which is going to make us happy, if we begin to realize happiness, ananda, bliss, this is my very nature, then we begin to actually find where it is. And once we find it within ourselves, once we begin, and this is through meditation, a person gradually begins to kind of discover this within, but once we find it within, then we find that all of our experiences are happy. It may be a troublesome experience from the worldly standpoint, it may be difficult crisis. It's like when a person is young and full of energy, full of enthusiasm. He may have to struggle over a lot of obstacles to make a career and so forth in life, but it's a joy. because he's got enthusiasm, he's got the energy to do it now. And so even though he's going through difficulties, it doesn't seem like a misery to him. It's actually it's a joy. In the same way, when you can begin to reconnect, become aware again of what the resources are within yourself, of what's there within, then you find everything becomes a joy. Everything becomes happy. Because you know there's this wonderful, great power there within you. And it's taking care of you. It's looking after you. And like that, your whole experience of life changes. And then it doesn't matter particularly whether you've got $1 million or you don't have any. Whether you have a big house or a little house or what kind of car you're driving. And none of these things really become important anymore. Because you find this is what's matter. You've got hold of the essence of it. All the mysteries of the universe, all knowledge of this contained within each of us. Because that's the reality at the core of our being. And so when you begin to approach that and become aware of it, then it starts to function and transform your life. You said you may not, although it will, but it doesn't necessarily have to change your outer events. But you go through those events with a totally different state of mind, totally different consciousness. Swami Vivekananda, in one place he said that for the bad person, for the evil person, he said this world is hell. For the good person, this very same world is heaven. He said, but for the yogi, this very world is God itself. And this is what starts to happen. He said, as a person begins to approach this deeper reality, is that it begins to unfold and reveal itself more and more. And a person becomes aware that there's a presence within you. And eventually, gradually, you become aware that that presence actually knows what it's doing. I mean, God is running the whole universe. If we allow Him to kind of begin to guide us, to begin to become a part of our life, then it becomes, everything starts to unfold in the best possible way. What they say is that as a person begins to approach that spiritual dimension within, then it's like the whole universe brings treasures to the person. It's the whole, because now he's gradually becoming in harmony with the whole universe. He's actually removing the barriers, the obstacles that were blocking out that divine presence. It's like it's always there. All the glory of God is always there, but like the sun shining, but it's like we can put down our shades and then sit in the darkness. And this is where most of us are at. God, in all His glory, all His power, all His love, everything is there. But we have, as human beings, we have the capacity, we can shut our shades and say, no, leave me alone, I'm busy here. And in Sri Krishna, he gave the example that when children are playing a game, the mother looks on, she said, oh, they're happy with the game, and she goes about her housework and lets them play. It's only when one of the children gets tired of the game and starts to cry, then the mother comes and she takes care of the child. He said in the same way, God looks at us. He said, oh, he's happy making money, or he's happy doing this, or they're happy. And so he basically leaves us alone. But when we actually begin to want God, begin to want something higher than just our human existence, then God begins to come. And then you realize the tremendous kind of grace that's there that can begin to flow into your life once you allow it in. And see, this is what's meant by spirituality, or what the message of Vedanta everything is that God isn't just a theological idea, a concept, or some vague thing. Yes, He's off there somewhere, but we have to make God to be an actual experience. Something that's an actual part of our consciousness and a part of our life, and then you get the benefit of religion. And there's a difference between religion and spirituality. A person can be religious, you can go to church every Sunday, go to temple. He can be very ethical and very moral. He can be a very good person, and also a very loving, kind, unselfish person, but he's still a human being. He's still living in as a human consciousness, only aware of kind of what he's experiencing, but now he's experiencing a very good life. And he can help other people and be a very fine person. But spirituality means you go beyond even good human consciousness, good human, and begin to experience that underlying reality. And that underlying reality is not just human. It's not just the human consciousness, but it's ultimately connected with or becoming one with the universal, divine, infinite consciousness out of which we've come and from which we've never actually been separated. See, right now, most people in this world, the great majority of us, we don't feel the presence of God. We don't feel that we're in God or that God's with us or anything else. We're simply not aware of it. But yet all the time, He is right there. It's like if you're asleep and you're dreaming, that dream world is the reality that you're living in. That's all you're aware of. You're totally absorbed in that dream world. Somebody else may be right next to you, and you're not aware of them at all. They're this close, and this is what the mystics say, that God is this close to us, closer than anything you can imagine, but we're not aware of it simply because we're asleep. We're not in that state. It's only when you wake up that you become aware, oh, this is here. In the same way, right now we're in this world, we're experiencing it, but actually we're always in God. And in spiritual life, or really what they call realization, the actual experience of God is like a waking up. Suddenly, you're in a whole different reality. When you wake up, the dream ends, and suddenly, you're awake. And there's a whole different world there. And then you say, oh yes, this is the reality. That was just a dream. I was imagining that world, but now I woke up and I realized it was a dream. In the same way, it's possible to kind of wake up from our human existence. And I'm this wonderful divine spirit. I'm part of the universal divine spirit. I'm one with the infinite God in all His glory. And that's what I've always been. I've always been the child of God. I've never been separated from God. And that awakening is called realization. And it completely transforms the person. Within our religious life, where we're trying to be a good person, sometimes we're good, sometimes we're bad. Sometimes we have the sense of gratitude, oh, I'm getting better, and then I fall down, oh, now I'm worse, and then we struggle back up, and so like that. It's a gradual thing, okay? And we're always the possibility of falling back down. The temptation comes and we go off and kind of lose it. But in realization, in the actual experience, it's like waking up. And now you're in a whole different reality, and no matter whether you were a good person before or if you were a bad person before, that's all gone. Because you realize, oh, I'm an eternal spirit. I'm the child of God. I've always been with God. I've never been anything else. And I was just dreaming that I was this bad person or this good person. And God has no awareness. Sometimes people think, oh, God is going to reward me if I'm good, or He's going to punish me if I'm bad. All of that is controlled by karma. That within the universe there's laws of karma, that as you sow, so shall you reap. You do good things, and generally good things will begin to come back to you, good experiences. You do bad things, and then bad reactions tend to come back to you. You decide I'm going to go out and bug people, but then you find yourself in jail. And so, like that, the world goes on. But God has nothing to do with that. He doesn't say, oh, this person was good, I'm going to bless him, this person was bad, I'm going to curse him. He's totally out of it, not involved in that at all. We're creating. We're actually creating our own experiences. We're drawing to ourselves our own, whatever comes to us. But most of us were ignorant of the process. So we tend to attract as much bad as good. But realization, or the actual spiritual experience, this is like you're out of that whole process altogether. And it's not a question of being better, a little bit better, a little bit better, or worse, a little worse, and so on. It's just, you wake up, and now, oh, this is it. This is what's real. And then you're totally kind of transformed by that experience. Now, in Hinduism, they believe in different heavens and hells, but they believe this is all part of what they call the samsara, like the drama going on. And all these things are temporary, and all these things are ultimately unreal. Now, the goal in Hinduism, or in Vedanta, is not to get to heaven, it's to realize your oneness with God, to actually experience God Himself, not just a very happy kind of state. Swami Varadananda, that's why he say that heaven is like, well, you go to heaven and you have a nice cup of tea, and then you have to come back to earth and start working again. So like that, the goal is not to just to get a kind of a better experience, but to ultimately realize what the truth, what the reality is of who you are, of what God is, and to actually be able to experience that reality. Now, all the Upanishads are connected with the Vedas, and the Vedas are considered the foundation of Hinduism. They're the original scriptures out of which Hinduism has developed. But the Vedas are actually divided into two sections. One is called the actual Vedas themselves, like Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and so on. And these were the mantras and hymns and chants that we used when they performed their ancient worship, which is called the yajna. And so they used to build a big fire, and then they'd offer things into the fire, chanting proper mantras and things like that. And so the Vedas, when we speak of the Vedas, the books, like Rig Veda, those are the actual chants and prayers and things that they used to use. Now the purpose of that worship was to bring various blessings into the person's life, to bring long life, cattle, freedom from disease, and to go to heaven. There's certain where you do a certain puja, a certain yajna, and hopefully you would get a spiritual reward out of it. And so this part of the Vedas themselves is called the karma kanda, or the work portion, because it was all kind of directed to getting some kind of results out of it, some kind of beneficial results. But along with the Vedas, with the karma kanda, was the Upanishads. Now, in the Upanishads, which is what we're studying here, this is where you get the underlying ultimate spiritual truth behind things. And they say, don't seek heaven, don't seek a prosperous life, don't seek all these kind of worldly things, but rather seek the ultimate truth. Know who you are, know what you are, know what God is, and experience that, and then you'll find you've reached the goal of life. You found what life is all about, otherwise you're just kind of wondering. There are all kinds of different experiences, good and bad, and so forth, but you never know what actually is true. And so the Upanishads, they're known as the Jnanakanda, or the knowledge portion, because they give the underlying truth, the reality which the ancient sages discovered through their meditation, all that there's this whole vast spiritual dimension, this spiritual reality to things that most people were unaware of. And so this is what we study, and this is the basic kind of Vedantic knowledge. Now, when you speak of this ultimate truth, Brahman and our ultimate nature is Atman, the Spirit, it's very difficult for the great majority of people to grasp, because it means, well, I'm not this person. I'm not this particular person. I'm not this human being. Actually, I'm something else, and it's just very difficult for most people to grasp. And so there's kind of two approaches to it. One is called Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, where a person tries to take his stand, saying, okay, I'm not body, I'm not mind, I'm not in this human existence at all, I'm in Brahman. Brahman is my nature, God is my nature. And tries to kind of take your stand there. Another one of the, and there's two basic techniques in Jnana Yoga. One is called yeti neti, not this, not this. A person says, okay, I know from scripture, I know I'm not this body, therefore I say, okay, that body is not me. And then you try to find, well, what am I? And then another approach is called vichara, self-inquiry, where you begin to ask, well, who am I? You begin to look within yourself and you say, well, who am I? What's my real nature? And so, like that, but you try to take your stand on the fact that you're spirit, you're not body. And this is a path called Jnana Yoga, where the goal is to eventually just try to become established in the ultimate truth and to be one with that truth. And except for most people, it's very difficult, because it means you're denying. You say, oh, I'm not that human being. I'm not that person. I'm not this with a job and family and house and everything. That's not me. And it's very hard for most people to really kind of get into it. But another path in Hinduism is known as Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. Now in Bhakti Yoga, instead of saying, oh, I'm actually spirit, I'm not a human being at all, you take the stand that I'm a human being, this is me, but I know there's something greater than me. There's something kind of more wonderful than me, which I call God, and I try to establish a relationship. Try to somehow connect, somehow make a connection with that divine reality. In other words, it's the same truth. One is kind of starting from the top and trying to stay there. One is kind of starting, but they eventually come to the same point of attaining union with God, attaining the actual experience of God. So for most people, it starts out with suddenly you begin to practice some kind of meditation. Now meditation, the basic idea behind meditation is that what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to achieve is ultimately a shift in consciousness. Swami Vivekananda has said that we exist as three different beings simultaneously. One is the body, physical body, and the senses and that experiences in the outside world and things. And we also exist as a mind. And we have our mental activities, our inner experiences and thoughts and feelings and knowledge and inspiration and so forth at the mind. And then the third level is the Atman or the spirit. Now all three of these beings, we exist simultaneously all the time. But what we become for practical purposes depends on where we focus our attention. If all of our attention is focused on the body, on what I'm having for supper and what's on TV and what's going on here, then our consciousness, it becomes physical. And basically what we exist as is a physical being, and we experience our happiness and sorrow, or our pleasures and pains, we experience those at the physical level, and that's the limit of our experience. Now some people in the world, they go more inwards and become more aware of the mind. And these are like scholars, scientists, artists, writers, people like this. For them, it's not so much important what's going on physically as what's going on within their mind, the discovery of new knowledge, of the inspiration of new beauty. All these things open up. And the person who's gone to the mental level, then his physical consciousness kind of recedes in the background, and now he's primarily a mental being, an intellectual being. And he lives in a much bigger universe than the purely physical. The purely physical person, is hardly more than an animal, just responding to heat and cold, and if he's eats or doesn't eat, drinks or doesn't drink, like that, just responding to physical sensations. But the mental person who's shifted to the mental, he opens up a vast world of understanding, of knowledge, of inspiration in all of our human civilization. It really has come out of that. And this life that the person lives, that the others can expand. We see the tremendous kind of changes and developments that have come in science and technology in just in the last 100 or so years, and it's all come out of the mind. And so like that, a person can live at the physical level where his consciousness is primarily physical and he's vaguely aware of the others, a mind there in the background and so forth, or he can live at the mental level, and then his focus is really, he becomes introspective, and his focus is what's going on inside my mind, and then the physical and all kind of recedes into the background. But deeper than that, deeper even than the mental and intellectual level, is the spiritual level. That as a person goes deeper within, eventually there becomes an awareness that in addition to the mind and my thoughts and my feelings and opinions, so there's something else here. And slowly that awareness that there's something more than just thought, more than just feeling, that there's something deeper than that, that begins to unfold into an awareness of your spiritual nature. Because like we said, you're actually spirit, you're always spirit, you're never anything else, you're just using particular body, particular mind as instruments. And so gradually you become aware that, okay, the instruments here, the physical instrument, giving me the external world, the mental instrument, giving me understanding and inspiration, but deeper than that is this presence within. And it is we call the presence of God, or we call a real something. You begin to open up to something completely beyond both mind and this is what, in all the religions, there have been saints, there have been mystics, there have been sages, people who have attained this actual experience of the divine reality. And this is kind of the ultimate goal. But it depends on where we focus our attention. As Christ said in the Bible, that where your treasure is, there your heart will be. If all of our attention, all of our interest is in what's going on in the stock market, then that's where our consciousness will be, and that's where we'll be focused. If on the other hand, our treasure, what's important to us, what really matters to us, is say the discovery of truth, the discovery of knowledge, gaining more knowledge, then our focus will be on the mental level. And then finally, if all of our attention, our desire, our yearning is to know what God is, to be with God, to somehow connect with God, then our consciousness will become spiritual. And so, like that, we, as human beings, right now we're somewhere in between. We're neither totally, at the animal level, the physical level, but we're also we're not at the spiritual level. Somewhere kind of in between, and it depends on what we consider to be really important to us, what really matters to us, determines kind of the results. For most people, what matters for most people is their kind of worldly success. Is that, how my life is going, how's my job doing, how's this doing? In all this, we're focused in our daily life most of the time, and this is what really matters to most people. Very few people actually worry that, I haven't realized God. It's just sort of, someday I'll get around to it, but it's not really that urgent. And this is a problem in spiritual life, is that the things of the world are very concrete and real to us. And a person will work tremendously hard, will study in school for years and years, and will work very hard in order to be a success in life. Because you can see it, if I do these things, then I know I'll have a good life. And it's something concrete. Yes, I'll have a nice a job, I'll have a nice place in society, and so forth, and so a person will make great sacrifices. Well, it's like the Olympic athletes. They train so hard, so tremendously hard, because they say, well, I can get a gold medal. You know, there's a goal there. There's something definite. And they say, if I work really hard, then I can get this thing. But when it comes to religion, many people are often doing it just with the sense of this is what I should be doing. Now, I've been told, yeah, this is what we should do, this is what is really important, this is the goal, but it's kind of vague and abstract. And there's God's there somewhere, but I don't have any idea what He is. I don't know what He is. I've been told, yeah, well, you go to heaven or you do this or that, but I don't know. And so, because of that, our approach to religion is often somewhat lukewarm. We don't have that driving intensity. Like, remember, for example, a drug addict. How he'll go through rain and snow and sleet and everything in order to get his drug, because he's got that intense desire for it. But nobody hardly desires or needs God the way a drug addict would. And so like that, we tend to be a little kind of lukewarm until at some point in the process, as you start doing your meditation, things like that, at some point you begin to get a glimpse. Some of you say, oh, some of you're going to know my life is getting pretty good now. I'm just more peaceful, I'm happier, things are going better, and occasionally you get a glimpse of, yeah, there's actually something there. And then that is where then a person really starts to get on the spiritual path. Is even a drop, even just a brief glimpse of something, that higher reality. And this is so beyond anything we can hope for, that you realize that this is the most important thing. And you see in the lives of saints in all religions how intense their search for God was, because they had at least that sense of this is what God is. So they weren't just doing their duty or doing what they've been told they should do or this, that. They actually had enough to realize that this is something truly wonderful. And so slowly, for most people, it's a gradual kind of awakening into it. And the person will start to practice meditation or something, and it's like his life starts to get better, his mind calms down, he gets just realizes things are going better, but then at some point, maybe there's a breakthrough, just a little shift in consciousness. And suddenly you realize that this God, which I didn't really believe in, I've been told about, and theoretically I said, but this reality is a reality. And it actually can be experienced. And then everything, the intensity, the yearning then will start to come. So this is, we kind of try to get a little background on what we're studying now in the Isha Upanishad and the basic Vedanta kind of foundation from which it comes. And this, so spirituality is expressed in many different ways. One of the basic teachings of Ramakrishna is the harmony of religions. That each religion has they're seen as like different roads to go to the same final destination. Each religion has got its own kind of glimpse of truth, its own core of truth, and the important thing to remember though is that the essence of religion, the real meaning of religion, is to experience God, to attain union with God, to experience God. That's at the core of all the religions, and this is what the saints, in all the religions, this is what they experience. Now when they experience that, when they reach it, they've got no quarrels with anybody, because they realize that there's a reality there, a truth there, and when they experience that, then they know, oh, this is it. But in addition to this essential kind of spiritual core that's there at the center of religion is religion is an organization, following certain teachings, particular scriptures, particular rituals, particular mythology, things like that. And so there you find all kinds of conflict, all kinds of difference, and all kinds of different theologies, all kinds of different ideas about what God is. And so like that, then you get conflict and fighting. And when the person, though, is focused on the spiritual, on that core thing, then it doesn't matter. So like that, Sri Ramakrishna taught that all the religions are like different paths that lead to the same ultimate, that help a person lead to the same ultimate goal of union with God. But they all serve their purpose. Because each person has a different nature, they have a different level of spiritual development, and so they're ready for different kinds of religions. One religion may be a very high, metaphysical type spiritual religion. Another religion may be very kind of superstitious and so forth. But it's like, you don't teach calculus to first graders. You know, you tell us a very simple, tell us stories, and then slowly they begin to learn and slowly begin to be ready for kind of higher mathematics. In the same way, all souls in the world, they were at different stages of development. And if you try to preach all the highest knowledge to everybody, 99% of people, they won't get anything out of it at all. So there's like different levels of teaching and so forth, but somehow we're all, as souls, as children of God, we're all actually evolving towards God, we're moving towards God, each on our kind of own path. So this is, like I said, we've been studying now Isha Upanishad. Before that we did the Katha Upanishad, and slowly we'll work through the different Upanishads. So any questions on any of this? I kind of downloaded the whole Vedanta kind of all in one shot, so it may be a little much to take in one thing. So anyway, so this is, we have this class, then on Sunday, we're going to have a special service, Easter service, will be held. And by the way, in the Ramakrishna Mission, and we have about 175 centers throughout India and the United States and so forth, but in all our centers, we also worship Christ as an incarnation of God. Because in Hinduism, they believe that whenever the world is in trouble, whenever the world gets kind of buried in ignorance and darkness, then God takes form, He comes to earth, and kind of re-energizes, brings in spiritual light and power. And so Christ is recognized as one of the incarnations where God came on earth, and through Jesus, the man, that the Christ consciousness, the Spirit, came into the world and is still functioning. So Easter we'll be celebrating on Sunday. Then right now Swami Isha Upanishad, the head Swami, he's in Houston. He gets back Saturday night. And then he does every Tuesday we have a class. He does on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which is the actual conversations of Sri Ramakrishna, who lived in India in the 1800s. Okay, so that's about it for upcoming events. Om Asatoma Satyaya Tamasoma Jyotirgaya Mrityurmam Amritam Gaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. Oh, peace, peace.